What's up, Snap Strategists? Today, we're embracing pure chaos with a deck that's all about destruction. We're building around Gambit, everyone's favorite Ragin' Cajun, and he's not here to play nice. If you've ever wanted to watch your opponent's cards disappear faster than a bad hand at poker, this deck is definitely for you. Stick around, because we're about to unleash Gambit's wild card powers and demolish everything in sight. For this build, Gambit is like that secret weapon that you keep up your sleeve until the very last moment. Literally. You don't drop him until the final turn, and when you do, chaos ensues. His ability discards a card from your hand to destroy a random enemy card, making him perfect for swooping in at the end and wrecking your opponent's well-laid plans. It's like waiting until the end of a movie to reveal the twist, and trust me, Gambit delivers. Whether it's obliterating their big finish or just causing some last-minute mayhem, Gambit brings the satisfying gotcha moment that makes your opponents want to flip the table. He's the ultimate closer for a destruction-focused deck, and it's always fun to watch your opponent's strategy go up in smoke with a single card throw. The deck as a whole has Scorn, Morbius, Swarm, Mystique, Magic, Crystal, Gambit, Wong, Absorbing Man, Sarah, Onslaught, and Odin. Now, looking at these cards, you'll probably notice an extreme lack of synergies. It almost looks like a hodgepodge of random nonsense that I just happened to click on, but is built for one singular purpose. To achieve it, there are two individual phases, the setup and the finisher. The first 5 turns are always going to be your setup. 6 is where you begin to reveal your plan a little bit, maybe. But turn 7 is where we unleash the bomb squad. Let's start with looking at the setup steps and what needs to be in place before that, though. First, you'll notice that there's only one 1-drop in the deck, and that's definitely not something you're going to want to play on turn 1. We'll look at that one in a minute. We actually don't have anything that we're going to want to play on turn 1, ever. The earliest you're going to want to play is on turn 2, and the only card that you're looking at there is Morbius. Morbius has an ongoing ability that gives +2 power for every card you've discarded this game. This is actually going to be our biggest card on the field at the end of the game. It is in the deck so we can still have a shot at the win, even if our opponents have played armor or other similar cards of that nature. If you've drawn both Scorn and Swarm in your opening hand, however, then you could also play Swarm on turn 2 to get it out of your hand to make sure you don't overdraw yourself. But you are going to need one or the other of those in your hand at the end of the game, so only play it if you've drawn both. Turn 3 is where the real setup starts to take place. We have a few different options here, 2 of which are the cards we just talked about. We also have Magic and Crystal that take priority on this turn over those ones. Crystal is a 3-power 3-drop that has both players draw a card as an on-reveal effect. Giving your opponents a card here is a feels bad, but what does it really matter if we're just going to blow everything up anyway, right? Plus, we require such a specific setup for this to work that getting just one card deeper into our deck can really make the difference that we need. This card could be replaced with Nico if you'd rather not give your opponents the advantage. You'd only want that in the deck for the card draw spell, and it's a gamble whether or not you get it in time and also have the right spell in time to reap the benefits of it. I chose to go with Crystal here because it's a more consistent form of draw. Magic is a 2-power 3-drop that replaces the location that she's played on with Limbo, which gives us the turn 7 that we need. Not only is this card integral for the deck, it's also integral to be played before turn 5 if you want to make sure the whole Gambit combo goes off. This deck was built to do one thing and one thing only. There are no alternate win conditions for it. You can still win with 6 turns if you don't get it in time. The amount of cards that you'll be able to destroy is drastically reduced, and you're relying a lot more on RNG at that point. On turn 4, you're still going to want to prioritize Magic and Crystal, but you also have the options here of Wong and Absorbing Man, depending on what cards you have in hand and which ones you've already played. Wong on turn 4 is very, very dangerous. It leaves you available for all sorts of disruption, and I do not suggest doing this. But sometimes it's your only play, and you just have to play the cards that you've been dealt. And since energy and playing on curve is super important for this deck, we have to make sure we're not wasting any resources, like at all. If you have no other options, then play it. Otherwise, it's better to play something different and wait. Absorbing Man is a bit of a niche play for turn 4. This fella has an on-reveal ability that copies the text of the last card you've played if that card also had an on-reveal ability. The only practical use here is to copy Crystal's ability to draw us an extra card, but only if we were able to get Morbius or Swarm out on turn 2. Otherwise, your hand's going to be full, and you won't be able to draw for your next turn, but you will have given your opponent an extra card for nothing. just for free. This is the only use of him though, or else it wouldn't have made it in the deck. It also serves as a backup Gambit if we haven't gotten the other pieces to pop off. Long into Mystique into a Gambit Absorbing Man can be just as devastating as a Gambit Odin play if your 3-minute Nemesis doesn't have a super full board. Turn 5, we have Sarah as the priority piece here. She's a 4-power, 5-cost card that makes all of your cards cost 1 less energy to play. Depending on which route you're taking to get to the blowy uppy part, this is also an integral piece that you'll need to have on this turn. If you do not play Wong on turn 4, then Sarah is required to have the energy to make the thing do the thing in the end. It'll allow you to play Onslaught on turn 6 with an energy to spare for either Swarm or Morbius if you weren't able to play one of those earlier. If you don't have Onslaught in your hand, you can play both Wong and Mystique on turn 6, also with an energy left over, and then you can play Gambit Odin on turn 7 for that exact amount of mana. If you did play Wong on turn 4, though, you may want to just play Mystique over him this turn instead. Then you could play Sarah on turn 6 to give you the energy reduction needed to either Gambit Odin or Onslaught Gambit later. By the end of turn 6, you should have 1 or 2 lanes with nothing but setup pieces, and Onslaught on a lane alone with Sarah in one of the setup lanes. Or you'd have Wong Mystique on a lane alone, again with Sarah somewhere else. Or you can have Wong and Onslaught on a lane together without Sarah, but you would have to have Mystique and Gambit in hand. Any of these 3 scenarios would get you to the same end result, leaving your opponent's board as empty as my ex's blackened soul. And all that's left is to snap and rake in the cubes. Game, set, match. Now that we've seen how the deck operates under peak conditions, I feel like I should warn you all that it comes with a bit of a disclaimer. It doesn't win very often. In fact, don't expect to win more than about a third of your games. It requires some very specific things to be in place and can be disrupted rather easily, which is where it's earned its name of Blast Cannon. It does, however, win 8 cube games somewhat regularly. With the losses that follow, the net cube gain is just not very high. This is a deck that's built to do something fun and cool, but I wouldn't try to use it to climb to infinite or anything like that unless you just like getting spanked, in which case, what are you doing later and call me. To put things into context, though, I've come up with a short list of things that'll just turn the deck off. We have Rogue, Cosmo, Enchantress, Armor, Echo, Professor X, Nimrod, anything that moves your stuff around like Magneto, Arrow, Stegron, or Juggernaut, clog style effects like Goblin, Hobgoblin, Debris, or Doc Ock, card stealing effects like Cable and Baron Zemo, gaining priority by the end of the game, or your opponent plays Invisible Woman, having an overfull hand or having your hand clogged with Master Mold or Black Widow, discard effects with Moon Knight or Black Bolt, destroy effects like Gladiator, Spider-Man 2099, or Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Mobius and Mobius just turning Sarah off, Colossus, Wolverine, or everybody's favorite purple fart cloud, Eliath. Forgive me, I may have missed a few. I think I made my point enough, though. Just be ready to face some losses if you wanted to try this deck out. Give this deck and other decks of mine a gauge to measure each other up against. I put them on a 5-star rating system graded across 5 different categories. Those categories are power, setup, win rate, cube gain rate, and accessibility. In terms of raw power, this deck earns itself a hot and spicy 2 stars. It does not focus on creating power at all outside of Morbius. In fact, you can replace Scorn with Apocalypse and Morbius with like Psylocke or something. This is a great deck to complete the win a location with 10 or less power bounties. I wouldn't suggest making those a full-time switch though, because things like Wolverine exist. In setup, I'm going to have to rate this one a 2 also. As we've seen, there is so much going on here, and it has to have one of 3 specific scenarios to play out in order to have it function at peak capacity. Since there are multiple routes to get there, though, it is a complete loss, and I feel like a 2 is right here. And for the win rate, also a 2. As I've said, this thing doesn't like to win all that often. I feel like there may be some other ways of exploring alternate win cons that would involve replacing Morbius and Absorbing Man with, like, Silver Surfer and Brood. But I don't have Silver Surfer yet, so maybe someone can test that out and let me know in the comments. That would be swell. In the cube gaining category, though, this deck has really outdone itself. I'm going to give it a whole entire 3 stars. It does win cubes, but the losses offset the cube gain rate. It may only be 1 or 2 cubes lost at a time, but 3 of those in a row, then only winning like a 4-cube snap, it doesn't really climb the ladder very quickly. And finally, for accessibility, this deck has earned itself a 4-star rating. Scorn is not necessary and can be replaced with Apocalypse very easily. And other than that, the rest of these cards should be simple and easy to get your hands on. And with that, The total rating for the deck is 2.6 stars overall. Our lowest scoring deck so far, but I wasn't really expecting this one to perform very well in these categories. I primarily just built this deck to quote-unquote do the thing. Well, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and the deck. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and you can find me live on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Depriesticles. Have a great day, everyone, and as always, happy snapping.